I never thought I would find myself in this position. My name is Eric, and I've been married to my wife, Sarah, for nearly 7 years. We had what I thought was a solid relationship. Sure, things weren't perfect. We'd had our share of arguments and rough patches like any couple. But I always believed we could work through anything together. That was until I noticed the subtle changes in her behavior that slowly unraveled the threads of our life together. It started a few months ago when Sarah announced that she wanted to give away our dog, Max. At first, I thought it was just her way of coping with the stress of work. She told me it was too much responsibility. Max had always been her shadow, and I couldn't understand why she'd suddenly grown distant. I tried to reason with her, reminding her of all the joy Max brought into our lives. She rolled her eyes, dismissing my concerns. "You just don't get it, Eric. I'm overwhelmed," she snapped. That was the first sign of trouble. It felt like a piece of her was pulling away, and I was left grasping at straws, trying to hold on to the relationship I valued so deeply. I brushed off my doubts, convincing myself that it was just a phase. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid, but deep down I knew something was off. The affection we once shared was being replaced with their cold indifference. Then came the late nights. Sarah started coming home later than usual, claiming she was working overtime at her marketing firm. I trusted her, but every time she stepped through the door, I felt a pang of unease. The way she quickly grabbed her phone and darted into the other room to take calls didn't help. The playful banter we once shared turned into awkward silences. Our dinners became lonely affairs, punctuated by her distracted glances at her phone. I tried to bring it up, but she always brushed me off with a huff or an eye roll. "You're being ridiculous, Eric. I'm busy. Get over it." One evening, I decided to do some digging. I know it wasn't the most honorable decision, but my gut was screaming at me. As I rifled through our shared computer, I stumbled across an email thread between Sarah and someone named Nick. My heart sank as I read their correspondence, filled with inside jokes and flirty banter. It was clear this wasn't just a friendship, it was something much more intimate. They talked about meeting up, planning secret dates, and couldn't wait to see each other again. The realization hit me like a freight train. My wife was cheating on me. The betrayal stung sharper than I could have ever anticipated. I felt a whirlwind of emotions. Anger surged through my veins as I grappled with the reality that the woman I loved was lying to my face. I could hardly breathe. It felt like the world was crashing down around me. That night, I barely slept, tossing and turning as I formulated a plan in my head. I knew I had to confront her, but how? I finally decided that I wouldn't let her lie her way out of this. I needed to confront Sarah with the evidence to show her that I wasn't the fool she thought I was. My heart raced as I replayed the scenario in my mind. I could already hear her excuses, her attempts to downplay everything, but I wasn't going to back down. I was ready for the confrontation, and I was determined to unveil the truth behind her deceptive smile. The next day was a blur. I went through the motions, but my mind was consumed with thoughts of the confrontation. I couldn't focus on work, and the usual chatter of my colleagues felt like a distant echo. I kept glancing at my phone, wishing for the courage to face Sarah and demand answers. The day dragged on, and when I finally walked through the door of our home, my heart raced. It was time to confront her. Sarah was in the living room, sprawled out on the couch with her phone in hand. She looked up as I entered, flashing a smile that felt more rehearsed than genuine. "Hey babe, you're home early," she chirped, her voice a little too bright for my liking. I could already sense the tension brewing beneath the surface, but I forced myself to keep my expression neutral. "Can we talk?" I said, my tone steady but firm. She shifted on the couch, a flicker of concern crossing her face. "Sure, what's up?" I took a deep breath, fighting the urge to let my emotions boil over. "I found some emails," I began, keeping my voice calm, "between you and someone named Nick." Her demeanor changed instantly. The brightness in her eyes dimmed, and for a brief moment I saw fear flash across her face. "What are you talking about?" she stammered, but I could see the guilt written all over her. "I know about the affair, Sarah. I know you're cheating on me," I replied, allowing my anger to seep into my voice. For a split second she looked paralyzed, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Then she turned defensive. You're being ridiculous, Eric. This is just a misunderstanding. I can explain. Her excuses came pouring out, each one more absurd than the last. Nick is just a friend from work. We've been talking about projects, and you know how stressful things are for me right now. You're overreacting. I held up my hand, cutting her off. You can't lie your way out of this. I read your emails, Sarah. You can't deny it. Her facade began to crack, and the mask of innocence slipped away. Okay, maybe I gotta. Little too close, but it doesn't mean anything. You know how hard I've been working. It was just a way to blow off steam. With every word that came out of her mouth, I felt the anger boiling up inside me, mixing with an overwhelming sense of betrayal. You think this is just blowing off steam? You're betraying me. You lied to my face every single day. I shouted, my voice echoing through the room. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I was too hurt to feel sympathy. I'd seen her cry before when she wanted to manipulate me, and I wasn't going to fall for it this time. I didn't want to hurt you, she pleaded. I thought I could handle it. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't cut it, Sarah. You've made your choices, and now we have to face the consequences. I was shocked at how calm I sounded despite the storm raging in my heart. As she begged for forgiveness, I felt a mixture of sadness and rage. I had loved her with all my heart, and now she was breaking it apart piece by piece. I couldn't help but think of the life we had built together, the dreams we had shared, and how quickly it all came crashing down. Do you think this is something we can just brush under the rug? I can't just forget this, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. Please, Eric, I'll do anything to fix this. I love you. She cried, but her words felt hollow now, tainted by the betrayal I had uncovered. Love. How could she say that when she had been lying to me and letting someone else into her heart? I felt the distance between us grow wider, and I couldn't shake the feeling that our relationship was fractured beyond repair. With a heavy heart, I realized I needed to contemplate the next steps. It was clear that this wasn't just an isolated incident. It was a symptom of deeper issues in our marriage. I had to consider how I wanted to move forward, but in that moment, all I could feel was the weight of her infidelity pressing down on me. In the aftermath of our confrontation, the house felt like a battlefield, silent and heavy with the remnants of our shattered relationship. I walked away from Sarah, my mind racing. I needed space to think, so I grabbed my keys and headed out for a drive, hoping the cool breeze would clear my head. I drove aimlessly, the city lights blurring together as I replayed our conversation over and over in my mind. Her words echoed, I love you. I scoffed at the thought. How could she claim to love me while betraying my trust in such a cruel way? The anger I felt was mixed with a profound sadness, and the knowledge that my wife had chosen someone else over me gnawed at my insides. After what felt like hours, I finally parked at the edge of a nearby park. The familiar surroundings offered little comfort, but I needed to escape the suffocating atmosphere of our home. As I walked around the park, I was lost in thought. I saw couples walking hand in hand, families laughing, and kids playing fetch with their dogs. Each sight felt like a cruel reminder of what I had lost. Eventually, I found myself on a bench, staring into the distance. I remembered the day Sarah and I brought Max home from the shelter, how she'd cried tears of joy as she cradled the little puppy in her arms. She had adored him. She had even said he was our baby. Now she wanted to get rid of him because he was too much responsibility. I couldn't wrap my head around how she could just turn off those feelings, how she could walk away from the love we once had. After a while, I decided I needed to face her again. I couldn't keep running away from this. I wanted to confront the situation head-on to see if there was any possibility of salvage or if it was all just a lost cause. I drove home, my heart heavy with the uncertainty of it all. When I walked back through the door, Sarah was sitting in the same spot, her eyes red from tears. She looked up at me, a mixture of hope and fear on her face. Eric, please, she began, but I held up a hand once more, silencing her. Let's talk, I said again, needing to lay everything out on the table. I needed to understand why she had done this to us. I didn't want it to go this far, she said, her voice trembling. It just happened. I thought it was harmless at first, but then I got caught up in it. I didn't want to hurt you. Harmless, I echoed incredulously. You call that harmless? You've been lying to me, sneaking around. You were intimate with someone else while pretending to be my wife. How can you justify that? I didn't think it would mean anything. It was just fun, she said, her eyes darting away from mine. I thought you wouldn't notice. I was trying to escape the pressure of work and everything. It was a mistake. I felt a surge of anger shoot through me. You think this was just a fling? You shattered our trust, Sarah. You didn't just make a mistake, you made a conscious choice to betray me. I know, she cried, sobbing into her hands. I know I messed up. I'm so sorry. I'll do anything to fix this. Please just give me a chance. I'll end things with him, I swear. Do you really think that's enough? I shot back. You can't just wipe away weeks or months of betrayal. With a verbal promise, you've broken something that can't just be fixed with an apology. I watched as the tears streamed down her face, and for a moment I felt a twinge of sympathy. But that sympathy quickly morphed into frustration. I didn't want to pity her, I wanted to feel angry, to feel justified in my outrage. I can't just forget this happened, Sarah. It's not that easy. Let's go to counseling, she pleaded. We can work through this together. I don't want to lose you. I love you, Eric. I promise I can make it right. I sighed, running my hands through my hair. The thought of counseling felt like grasping at straws. I needed time to think, to breathe, to process everything. I don't know if I can trust you again, I admitted, my voice softening despite my best efforts. Just give me a chance, she begged once more, desperation etched on her face. The room fell silent, the air thick with tension as I contemplated my next move. I felt a whirlwind of emotions, anger, sadness, and a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could fix this. But could I really go back to the way things were? Or was it time to cut my losses and let go of what we once had? In that moment, I realized I needed to take a step back and truly assess what I wanted moving forward. I had to decide if this was a relationship worth fighting for, or if it had become a painful reminder of betrayal and broken trust. The days following our confrontation were a whirlwind of emotions, and I found myself walking a tightrope between anger and confusion. Sarah was doing everything she could to save our marriage. She was apologizing, texting me throughout the day, and even trying to recreate our date nights, but the spark was gone. I felt like I was living with a stranger, not the woman I had loved for so many years. I spent more time than I cared to admit in my head, wrestling with the choice of whether to give Sarah another chance. A part of me desperately wanted to hold onto the memories of our life together, the laughter, the quiet moments, the shared dreams. But another part of me was screaming that I could never truly trust her again. One evening I decided to go for a long run to clear my mind. The crisp evening air felt refreshing, and as I ran, my thoughts drifted to our past, the vacations, the laughter, the intimacy we shared. And then I thought about Max, our loyal dog, who had once been a source of so much joy and comfort. It struck me how easily Sarah had dismissed him, how she had thrown away our shared responsibilities for her selfish desire to escape. When I returned home, I found Sarah sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up, and for a moment I could see a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "How was your run? Did it help?" she asked, her voice tinged with anxious anticipation. "It was fine," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. "We need to talk." She nodded, her expression shifting to serious. I took a deep breath, preparing for what I had to say. "I've been thinking a lot about our situation." "About us?" I started, watching her closely for any signs of understanding. "I don't know if I can trust you again after everything that happened." "I understand, I get it," she said, biting her lip. "But please, Eric, I need you to know I'm committed to making this work. I'll end things with Nick right now if you want." "Will that really fix everything?" I challenged, raising an eyebrow. "You think just ending it with him will erase the betrayal? There's more at stake here than just that. You need to understand how deeply this has affected me." "I know," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "I was stupid and I hurt you. I can't change what I did, but I want to change moving forward. Let's go to counseling together. We can work through this. Please, I love you." The sincerity in her voice tugged at my heart, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this might all be just another one of her manipulations. I decided to take the plunge and suggested we meet with a therapist. "We can start there," I said cautiously, "but I need you to be completely honest with me about everything. No hiding, no lies." Sarah nodded vigorously, relief flooding her face. I promise, Eric, I'll do whatever it takes to win back your trust. But as we scheduled our first therapy session, I couldn't help but feel a nagging doubt. Would counseling really help? Was I ready to dive back into this relationship, or was I merely buying time to figure out an exit strategy? The first session came quickly, and as I sat in the waiting room, I felt a mix of anticipation and dread. I looked around at the other couples, each dealing with their own struggles. I felt like the odd one out, and the weight of my situation felt heavy on my chest. When we were finally called in, the therapist greeted us with a warm smile, but I could hardly focus on her words. I kept replaying the betrayal in my mind, the image of Sarah with Nick, as if it was burned into my memory. Sarah spoke first, detailing her feelings and how overwhelmed she had felt. She poured her heart out, and I could see the sincerity in her eyes, but I also felt the walls I had built around my heart hardening. I listened intently but couldn't shake the feeling that it was all a performance. The therapist encouraged us to communicate openly, and for the next hour we navigated the murky waters of our relationship. Sarah spoke about her fears and insecurities, and while I could empathize, I struggled to connect her emotions to the betrayal. As the session ended, I felt a glimmer of hope mingled with doubt. Maybe counseling would help us, but I couldn't shake the sense that I was still walking a tightrope. Each session felt like it was peeling back layers, exposing wounds that ran deeper than I had anticipated. After a few weeks of counseling, I noticed some changes in Sarah. She was more attentive, more willing to communicate, and I found myself slowly softening toward her. But with each intimate moment we shared, the shadow of her infidelity loomed larger in my mind. I felt like I was constantly battling against my own feelings. Was I falling back into old patterns, or was I truly willing to forgive? As the therapist urged us to focus on rebuilding trust, I was left grappling with my own emotional turmoil. I needed to face the reality of our situation. I was at a crossroads, and I had to decide whether to continue down this path of healing or to cut my losses and walk away for good. I felt the weight of my decision pressing down on me more than ever. The choice I made would define the rest of my life, and I had to be sure of the path I wanted to take. As weeks turned into months, the emotional roller coaster continued. Each therapy session brought moments of clarity and connection, but it also felt like I was constantly walking a tightrope, balancing my need for healing with the lingering pain of betrayal. There were days when I felt hopeful, seeing glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with. Other days her mistakes loomed large, reminding me that trust was fragile and hard to rebuild. One evening after therapy, I returned home feeling particularly reflective. I found Sarah sitting at the dining table, surrounded by papers and our beloved dog Max, who was curled up at her feet. As she looked up at me, her eyes sparkled with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. "I've been thinking we should plan a weekend getaway, just the two of us," she suggested, a hopeful smile on her face. I hesitated, unsure how to respond. A part of me longed for that intimacy, a chance to reconnect in a different environment, but another part of me screamed, "What about the betrayal? Do you really think that's the answer?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "A weekend away won't erase what happened between us." "I know it won't erase it, but it might help us rekindle what we lost," she insisted. "I just want to show you how much I care." I sighed, rubbing my temples as I wrestled with conflicting emotions. The idea was tempting, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being swept away in her idealism. "I need time, Sarah. I don't think rushing into another trip is the solution." Her expression faltered, and for a moment I saw the glimmer of desperation in her eyes. "I just thought it might help," she said softly. "I want to make things right." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our past hanging in the air between us. I knew she was trying her best, but I still felt a barrier between us that I wasn't sure would ever come down completely. Over the next few days, I contemplated the idea of the getaway. Maybe it would provide us with a fresh perspective. But just as I was coming around to the idea, I received a text that changed everything. It was from an unknown number, but the message made my stomach drop. "Hey, Eric, I think you should know that Sarah hasn't been completely honest with you. She hasn't ended things with Nick. I saw them together last weekend. Panic surged through me and I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. I couldn't believe it. My heart raced and anger boiled over as I paced back and forth in the living room. After everything we'd been through, how could she do this again? I felt betrayed once more, the scars of her previous infidelity reopening like fresh wounds. I couldn't wait to confront her. I needed answers, and I needed them now. Sarah walked in from the kitchen, a smile on her face, but it quickly vanished when she saw the look on mine. "What's wrong? Who is Nick?" I demanded, my voice low but filled with rage. Her eyes widened in surprise, and I could see the gears turning in her mind. "What do you mean?" "Eric, I told you I ended things," she stammered. "Did you? Because I just got a message saying you were with him last weekend." I spat, my heart racing with anger. "I can explain," she cried, but I didn't want to hear it. The cycle of lies had to end. "Explain what? How you're still lying to me?" I didn't want to listen to her excuses. I was done with the deceit. "Please just let me talk," Sarah pleaded, her voice rising in desperation. "It was a mistake. I told you I was trying to figure things out." "Figure what out? How to keep lying to me?" I shot back, feeling the weight of betrayal crush me. "You haven't changed at all." "I swear I was trying. I didn't mean for it to happen." She insisted, but I could hear the panic in her voice. I felt a wave of exhaustion wash over me, the emotional toll of the last few months crashing down. "I can't do this anymore, Sarah," I said, my voice breaking with the weight of my decision. "I can't keep putting my heart on the line when you're still hiding things from me." Tears streamed down her face as she stepped closer. "Eric, please don't say that. I love you. I want to fix this." "Love isn't enough when trust is broken, Sarah. I can't keep going in circles with you. I need to walk away." The silence that followed felt deafening. I held my breath, waiting for her response, but all I heard was the sound of my heart pounding in my ears. I had finally reached my breaking point, and as difficult as it was to say, I knew it was time to let go. "Maybe we both need to take a step back," I finally said, the resolve in my voice firm. "I need clarity. I need to know if I can trust you, and right now I can't." As I walked away, emotions swirled inside me like a storm. I could hear her sobs behind me, but I couldn't turn back. I needed to protect myself, even if it meant breaking my own heart. The path ahead was uncertain, but it was one I had to carve out for myself, and I knew it wouldn't be easy. It was time to confront the reality of our relationship and accept that sometimes letting go was the only way to move forward. The days that followed my decision felt surreal. I moved through life in a fog, emotionally drained from the whirlwind of betrayal and heartbreak. I had spent years investing in a relationship, nurturing what I thought was a loving partnership, only to find it crumbling around me. I was devastated, but there was also a flicker of relief. The weight of uncertainty had lifted, and I was finally able to breathe without the crushing pressure of constant doubt. After a week of separation, I decided it was time to meet with Sarah again. I needed closure, and while I knew it wasn't easy, I owed it to both of us to have an honest conversation. I drove to our home, my stomach churning with anxiety. I was prepared for tears, anger, and apologies, but deep down, I knew I couldn't let her manipulate my feelings again. When I arrived, Sarah was waiting for me, her face pale and drawn. The remnants of her tears were still visible, and I could see the pain in her eyes. "Eric," she said softly, "thank you for coming." "I think we need to talk about what's next," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil within. "Please, I want to make this right," she pleaded, her tone desperate. "I know I messed up, but I've realized how much you mean to me. I want to fight for us." "Sarah," I began, taking a deep breath, "I've been doing a lot of thinking. I can't just ignore what happened. You made choices that hurt me, and I can't go back to pretending everything is fine." "I know," she said, her voice breaking, "but I'm willing to get help. I'll go to counseling on my own. I'll do anything to prove to you that I'm serious about changing." "I believe you want to change," I replied carefully, "but I need more than just promises. Trust is something that takes time to rebuild, and I don't know if I can give that to you right now." Her shoulders slumped as my words sank in. "So what you saying? Is this it?" "I think it is," I admitted, feeling a mix of sadness and resolve. "I need to put myself first for once. I need to heal, and I can't do that while still entangled in this relationship." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she nodded slowly. "I understand. I just wish things had been different. I never wanted to hurt you." I know, I said gently, but harm was done and I can't ignore it. We can't go back to how things were. There's too much hurt between us. We sat in silence, the weight of the moment surrounding us. The memories of our life together flooded my mind, the laughter, the dreams, the love. But now all of that felt tainted. It felt as if I was saying goodbye to a part of my life that I had cherished deeply. After several moments, I stood up, preparing to leave. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said quietly, genuinely wishing her well. I hope you find happiness. Eric, wait, she said, standing to face me. I just want you to know that I'll always love you. You were my best friend. I loved you too, Sarah, I replied, feeling the sting of tears in my eyes. But love isn't always enough. I need to take this time to rediscover myself. As I walked away, I felt a mix of grief and liberation. The future was uncertain, but it was mine to shape. I knew that I would stumble along the way, but I was determined to reclaim my life. I had learned that love could sometimes blind you to the truth, and trust was a fragile thread easily snapped. In the weeks that followed, I focused on healing. I leaned on friends and family for support, rediscovered my passions, and even began volunteering at a local animal shelter. It felt good to be around dogs again, to find joy in their innocence and loyalty. I realized that Max had been a constant source of unconditional love in my life, and I couldn't let Sarah's actions taint that connection. As I navigated this newfound independence, the pain of the betrayal began to soften. I learned to embrace my emotions, to allow myself to feel the hurt but not be consumed by it. I found new hobbies and forged deeper connections with those around me. Each day was a step toward rebuilding my life, and with each step, I grew stronger. Looking back, I recognized the lessons learned from this experience. I had grown in ways I never anticipated, and I understood the importance of self-respect and the power of walking away from toxicity. I had learned that love should never come at the expense of one's dignity. As I moved forward, I hoped to find love again someday, but I knew I would approach it differently. I would protect my heart, establish boundaries, and never lose sight of my own worth. Life would continue to unfold, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next, one step at a time.